Oh, what's it called? Lake St. Clair smallmouth llama.
Body barely hooked too.
Nettie. Boom! Look at this thing, dude. Look at that.
That's a savage.
Giant. Oh, I thought they were.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, now the fish are flat. Make a little movement. There's one. Got it. That might be a good one. Wrapped around the trolling motor.
It's like it's beat up a little.
Golly, that fish is so cold.
Damn, there's one.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another edition of So In Outdoors. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to click on our video, and we appreciate your viewership. If you are a subscriber, thanks for subscribing and coming back. And if you're not a subscriber, take the time, hit the subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and by all means, please leave us a comment. The comments help with the algorithm and get our videos more viewable to attract new audiences. And we greatly appreciate you taking the time to do so. So the little clip that you just saw there may just look like any fish catch. And that's kind of what I want to talk about real quick is as I was fishing the other day, first time getting the boat out this year, and it wasn't easy. It was actually really tough. Water was super cold, it was dirty, and the fishing just wasn't easy. And it made me realize that there are just a lot of steps to breaking down a technique or an area to generate that bite. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't think about. Sometimes it just is second nature. It's just decisions that you make on the fly. But I have kind of a process that I want to share with you in case if it doesn't come easy for you. And a lot of times it doesn't come easy for me either. But there's just a process that tends to work for me. So it's kind of the most cliche, overused term in fishing, and especially bass fishing, and that is fish the moment. It is so true. So a lot of things led up to catching that fish to kind of give me the clue. What I would start with whenever I go to a body of water and I'm looking at the time of the year, obviously the first thing I'm doing is kind of looking at the seasonal patterns, like what would traditionally play out based on the weather conditions and what the water levels are and water temperatures. So I find the area that I want to start. Based on my mapping, I'm looking for those 45-degree angle banks, areas that I think those fish would be at this time of year. So a winter pattern, but they're not going to be too far from their spring locations. So as I pull into the first area, I'm looking for, first and foremost, I'm looking for bait. Do I see forage? I'm looking for what those fish are feeding on. And as I pulled into this particular pocket, first thing I notice, a lot of bait. So there's a lot of bait in this pocket. I'm looking on my graph, I'm looking for bait, I'm looking for fish. I'm seeing that there's fish under the bait, but they're closer to the bottom. And I'm not seeing a lot of bait coming to the top like the fish are feeding on bait, pushing them up. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Second thing I'm looking for is the wind. How is the wind affecting the area that I'm in? So in this particular scenario, I'm seeing that the wind pushing in there is actually pushing the bait to the bank, which is kind of what I'm looking for. But what you have to be careful of this time of year is a lot of times the wind could push cold water into these areas and sometimes would render them not as effective. In this particular case, the wind was actually pushing a little warmer water into this pocket. So we had a 3-degree water temperature spike. Now, that might not seem like much, but 3 degrees to a fish in their environment, that's a pretty significant change from 44 to 47. Now, that brings me to my next point is water temperature and water color. I'm looking at really stained water. So what that's going to do is that's going to tell me that for me to catch a fish, I'm probably going to be fishing relatively shallow. I'm probably going to be winding a bait. I'm seeing fish on the bottom. So therefore, I want a bait that is going to make contact with the bottom, that I can fish relatively slow in that colder water, but something that's going to put off the key vibration. I need some vibration, some water movement in that dirty water, because those fish are not sight feeding, they're feeding off their lateral lines. So they are sensing vibrations and movements in the water to feed on their prey. Immediately I can narrow down my whole plethora of tackle to just a few baits. I know that a jerk bait would be a good bait to be using in this kind of water temperature, especially with a shad kill going on. But unfortunately with the water color, a jerk bait's not going to be as effective as a crankbait. So I know I can throw a crankbait, and another bait I can pick up would be a chatterbait. So a chatterbait I can fish slow, it's got a lot of vibration to it, I can fish it right along the bottom. Now in the area that I'm fishing, got a lot of rocks, a lot of debris, a chatterbait's going to get hung up quite a bit. So I want a bait that's going to deflect off that cover. So therefore I chose to go with just a crankbait. Just fishing it slow, letting it bounce off the rocks, and changing my retrieve up a little bit. Slow at first, speed it up a little bit, just trying to find what those fish want. Now, what you didn't really see there in the initial fish catch is that I had 2 or 3 fish slap at that bait and not get it initially. And the first thing that comes to mind then is I need to make a color change. The fish they're feeding on the vibration, but there's something there that's keeping that fish from committing to that bait. So I made a color change, and I also made a bait style change in the crankbait itself from more of a DT6 type crankbait to a flat-sided crankbait, something with a little tighter wiggle and one that would still deflect off of the cover. The next bite that I get, the fish absolutely choked it. So then I know I've got the bait that they'll eat, the color that they will eat, and I'm around their forage. I'm in the right water color and the right water temperature. The wind is working to my advantage in an area that I believe those fish should be for this time of year. And by taking all those little factors, those are things that sometimes I take for granted because it kind of becomes second nature over time. But for someone that maybe doesn't fish as much or isn't sure about this time of year, those are some factors to really think about. And then lastly, I always analyze, and this is the most important thing, because so many of your factors in fishing and catching fish and being able to repeat a fish catch come from the catch itself. So when I catch that fish, I'm immediately analyzing it.
It's like it's beat up a little.
Golly, that fish is so cold.
Then
Yeah, he ate it good. Real good. Fish is beat up. Got the lipstick on. Now, what that means, there's a lot of theories behind it, but the lipstick there, that's from fish wallowing. They're getting down on the bottom and they're picking for crawfish, gizzard shad. On a high sky day like this, a lot of sun, the gizzard shad actually feed on debris on the bottom, and those bass will get down and it will make that upper lip red a lot of times from when they're wallowing down on the bottom. So what that means is a jig can be really good. But I caught that one on a crankbait, but it was deflecting off the bottom. So when you see fish like that, especially in cold water, make sure you run a crankbait that goes down and ticks the bottom. That's where they're feeding. When I see that, that's the first thing I'm thinking, okay, now I know that that's probably what they're feeding on, more so than the shad. So I want to keep that bait contact with the bottom, and I could probably follow up with a jig in a crawfish pattern or with a crawfish trailer on it, something that would put off that profile and still catch some fish doing. Analyzing that fish catch tells me a lot
about what's going on and what adjustments I can make to continue to catch fish. Now, does it work every time? No, every fish is a little different, and sometimes it can send you down a rabbit hole. But most of the time, it is going to teach you a lot about your next bite. So take some of that information, guys, and hopefully put it to good use and go out and catch you some bass this winter. Spring's just around the corner. We don't have too much longer before the fishing starts to get back up on its feet. We're looking forward to some trips coming up, and can't wait to get some more content out there for you guys. You guys have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to do so.